When it comes to the Studies of Religion HSC exam, Section 1 can often be overlooked, but it's easy marks if you do it right. Good morning. Today I'm going to be going through a strategy to make sure you get all those marks in Section 1 of the Studies of Religion exam. So this is the multiple choice and the short answer section. If you're studying one unit, it is 15 marks on religion and belief systems in Australia post 1945. And if you're also studying 2 unit, it's another 15 marks on religion and non-religion. A lot of students spend all their time worrying about the depth studies and the piece essay, and they forget there is a lot of content and exam strategy needed for this section. So I'll explain how to make those notes, how to make sure you're studying them most effectively, and how to perform in the exam to get that band 6. Firstly, how are you going to organise your notes with all that content? For both religion and belief systems in Australia post 1945 and religion and non-religion, start with the syllabus. SOR is one of those subjects where you can make notes almost exactly to the syllabus, which is excellent. But a lot of people don't make the most of this. They just kind of put a couple dot points under each syllabus point. Let me show you how my notes were organised. So you can see how I've named them notes and answer plan. I've done this because we don't know which section of the syllabus is just going to form a multiple choice question or which one is going to form like a short answer 5 marker. So on any of these points, you might just need to know a tiny bit of knowledge, or you might need to know an in-depth history and an example. For this reason, write your notes in sentences that could be used in the short answer section, rather than on the day being expected to transform your little dot point notes into the eloquent and really succinct sentences that are needed to get that 5 out of 5 in the short answer. You'll be recalling knowledge in pre-packaged, succinct, eloquent sentences. Let's have a look at some example notes for religion and belief systems in Australia post 1945. You can see I've split it up into contemporary Aboriginal spiritualities, and then on another doc I've got religious expression in Australia 1945 to present. You don't need to do that, that just helped me. Let's have a look at religious expression in Australia 1945 to the present. You can't really even see the syllabus dot points anymore because I've made them into sentences. Sometimes you just need stats, but as much as possible, write properly. Another key thing that is needed when you make notes for this section is examples. It's not enough to just have the content. This SOR content has been around for a while. It's on the internet in 1,000 different ways. I can even give you the links to these notes. What is going to elevate you from the average person is your examples. Quotes from sacred texts, from government websites, from press releases, individuals, organisations, events. Make them unique, make them as recent as possible, obviously not if you're doing a sacred text, and make them well explained. Here we have this section on interfaith dialogue. The content is here, great. But what else? Affinity Intercultural Foundation. Abraham Conference 2019 was a panel of Muslim, Christian and Jewish speakers. Also holds interfaith iftar dinners during the holy month of Ramadan. I sat the HSC in 2019. Try to have your examples within 3 years of your HSC. We have another example in the religion and non-religion section. Here in the new religious expression section. Australia's Mind Body Spirit Festival includes activities such as meditation, yoga, psychic readings, and seminars on crystal healing. Participants can choose the activities which best aid them in dealing with the challenges of their daily lives. In this way, they find a personal sense of fulfillment, ethical guidelines, and join a community of like-minded individuals. And you can see how those pre-packaged notes are really hitting all the syllabus dot points, and you will know that if you're having a look at the SOR syllabus. It's a modern example, it pulls together all the syllabus dot points, perfect. Secondly, how should you be studying these notes? This technique is very similar to the one I teach in my essay scaffold video, so check that out and I will link to it. You want to start with your notes in front of you. So these notes that are in pre-packaged sentences to the syllabus dot points, have them on your laptop next to you, maybe print it out, and then have some practice questions. Practice applying these notes to the practice questions. Next, take these practices and send them off to a teacher, to a peer or a tutor to get them marked, to get some feedback. Maybe they think you haven't said something well, or you could be more succinct, or you need a stronger example. You're only working with 5 marks, so get these notes as perfect as possible. Keep improving your notes in this way, and keep practicing until you're super familiar with it. You should be studying open book and open time, so like notes in front of you, no time restrictions, then slowly moving away from the notes and introducing time restrictions until you're doing basically exam conditions past papers. As you get close to the exam, so the night before or the morning of, stop doing these practices. You don't want to be doing practice papers. It's going to destabilize your headspace, especially not under timed conditions. Instead, just practice handwriting the notes. This just reaffirms the content in your brain and can be quite a mindful activity. So just find a quiet space, get a tea, and just get your Zen on and write it out until the exam. Thirdly, how should you be performing in the exam to maximize marks? After reading time, start with the multiple choice questions, then dive into your short answers. Obviously, that's the order of the exam, but some people like to mix it up. I recommend following the order. Some teachers say that the multiple choice questions are designed to prime your brain for the short answer. Don't know if that's true, but it's a good reason to just do it. And also, after you read the short answer question, you just want to allow as much time as possible for all the knowledge to come to the top of your brain, so it's ready when you start your short answer after the multiple choice. When it comes to multiple choice, it can be very tempting to rush, but you don't want to have to waste time reading and rereading. So just take it a little bit slower than you think you should, just so you can do it properly. Unless the multiple choice answer is super obvious, follow a process of elimination. Let's have a look at an example from the 2019 HSC exam. Question 8. What do ecumenism and interfaith dialogue have in common? A. They both aspire to achieve a unification of beliefs. B. They focus on promoting women into key leadership roles. C. They both aim at rationalizing the use of buildings for shared worship. D. They both value religious harmony while respecting religious diversity. We can rule out A, because that's quite obviously not what it is. We're not trying to bring people together into a unification of beliefs. That's neither ecumenism or interfaith dialogue. Next, we can see that C is way too simple of a thing for ecumenism and interfaith dialogue to have in common. We're not trying to use, they might be trying to use shared worship spaces sometimes, but that is not the greater aim of these massive terms. Next, we can see that B and D both can be seen as true in some cases, but B will be the next one we rule out because we're not talking about feminism. So we're left with D, the most correct answer. So now the short answer section, the 5 markers. When you read the 5 marker the first time after the reading exam, annotate the question and try to identify which parts of the syllabus it connects to. I have a whole video on how to unpack HSC questions and how to annotate them and make sure you're connecting to the right aspect of the syllabus, so I will link to that one. Now let's have a look at an example. Evaluate the importance of interfaith dialogue in Australia with reference to at least one organisation. Here we have the word evaluate, and we can see this is coming from the interfaith dialogue part of the syllabus, and they want one example. So we're going to start with a kind of thesis statement which addresses the question and shows that we have an understanding of the key terms. In an increasingly multi-faith Australia, interfaith dialogue is of utmost importance, being the formal discussions between religious traditions aimed towards developing greater mutual understanding of each other's uniqueness. So we showed utmost importance and we gave a definition. Let's continue. Interfaith dialogue has proved itself to be important in breaking down prejudices, including those towards Muslims, which have been prevalent in Australia since 9/11 and the Cronulla riots. So we show its value, its place in modern day Australia, and give a bit of context to show how religions are constantly dynamic. In SOR, they just want to know how it applies to the current world. It also promotes shared spirituality in times of crisis, such as after the Christchurch mosque shooting, and can be used to build relationships which allow religious traditions to more often and more effectively uphold shared values, such as the dignity of the person, and work towards social justice. So in that section, I had a modern example. So 2019 Christchurch mosque shooting was at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. And when that happened, a lot of religious traditions came together and it really showed how we could uphold the shared values. For example, the Affinity Intercultural Foundation often hold an Abraham conference, and in 2019 it featured a panel of Muslim, Christian and Jewish speakers which educated the multi-faith listeners. Similarly, Affinity holds interfaith iftar dinners during the holy month of Ramadan to demystify swan, fasting and increase acceptance. So we've got an example. We've also used a bit of Islamic terminology, one of the pillars, to show, we know our stuff. That has a lot of examples in there, and you might not get that all down in time, but it just shows the ways that you can interweave examples. Maybe you don't need that last little bit. Maybe you don't need something about the 9/11 and the Cronulla riots. But those examples are really what elevate it, bring it into the contemporary world. They're the key. So once you've understood the question, started writing, and you think you've answered it, resist the urge to overwrite. Give them what is needed and nothing more. It's only worth 5 marks, and it is a long exam. Get into the rest of it. So that is all my advice for section 1 of the HSC Studies of Religion exam. Everything from how to make the notes, how to study them, and how to make sure you're performing well in the exam. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to share any advice, and I hope this helped.